What's going on, guys? Today I'm gonna show you how to create a cool full stack website in 5 minutes. Let's jump straight into it. Actually, I don't know how long it would take. Let's see. We will be making it using Wasp. Wasp is a cool thing that lets you develop full stack web apps faster, as they say on their website. How does it work? We are creating a Wasp file in its own language, where we are describing our app, all things about it. I'll show it just in a moment. It have lots of cool features. We'll get it. So we are writing Wasp file, and our front end in JSX React files, our backend procedures in JavaScript files for nodejs, and then Wasp compiler compiles it into our web app as shown here, and we can even deploy it. Recently I got an email from myself 5 years ago, sent from some websites that I even forgot of, and I thought, damn, that's cool that it got to me, but that site could also been deleted by that time. We can't trust anyone, so let's create something like that by ourselves. I called it Hive Mail, cause Wasp, some bee theme. Imagine we are sending our emails to the beehive and they're storing there. That's the main page. We can input some title, message, receiver, and when we want to receive this message. After that it gets saved, we can jump to our message and it's sorted by newest to latest. We can see it right here. On 2025 we'll receive it, I promise you. Also we have public messages, and if we are not logged in we can write message too, but it will not be saved as written here. How do we do it? First we need to install Wasp. You can do it on these systems by running this command. Notice if you're Windows, you need Windows subsystem for Linux at this moment. Now that Wasp is installed, we can write Wasp new. Let's call this Hive Mail, and we have a few templates to choose from. Let's choose basic one, and now let's open it in the VS Code. Here it is, that's simple. For this to work you need to install Wasp extension. We can run it by running wasp start. First it will install all packages, compile our project, and we got straight into the home page of this application. It's pretty simple, just that page. First, let's change our database to PostgreSQL. By default, Wasp uses SQLite, but we'll need to change it in production anyways. Doing it is pretty simple. We just write in db system PostgreSQL. Right. Every time we save this or any other file, Wasp will recompile our project, and it got crashed due to change of database system. Since we are using PostgreSQL, we can't only write wasp start. And since now, before starting Wasp, we also need to start our database. It's doing simple. Just write out wasp db start, and we are good to go. Now we can also wasp start, if we cancelled it. Okay, let's do some real changes. First we need some layout for our pages. For this we are creating folder named layouts and a file main layout tsx. I've pasted this layout, we'll get into it, but first I noticed we need to set up our auth and install one dependency. How we do it? We do it in wasp file. We need to create our database entity called user. In our entity we've defined properties in Prisma schema language, as suggests this PSL. If you don't know, Prisma is the next generation TypeScript ORM, and Wasp have built-in support for it. So we don't have to install it, configure it, anything. Wasp have multiple email strategies, but I've chosen email and password one. So in order to it to work, we need to have all these properties in our user entity. Also we'll need entity called message, and message will have next fields. Of course, ID, title of the message, body, is it public or not, author, which is connection to our user, when we want to send it, who will receive it, and whether it's sent or not. While in user we specified email and some email verification fields, because Wasp have built-in email auth and will send a verification letter for us, as well as password resetting functionality. We'll do it soon. Oh, and let's connect our user to the messages too. When user is defined, we can make auth. User entity is user. We need to specify some methods. We've chosen email, so here we need from field as TypeScript suggests, where we need to specify some name. Let's do -mail for now. And email. Let's say hello@mail.org. Also we need to specify our email verification and password reset routes, as well as functions to do it. We'll do it in a second, but also let's allow unverified login. By default you can't use app as a registered user if you haven't verified your account. Of course it will give us errors that we don't have these routes. Let's create them. On client side, let's create folder pages, and here let's create folder auth. Unlike Next.js, Wasp doesn't have file-based routing, so we are safe to go here as much as we like it. Let's create email verification tsx and paste this form. It's basically some divs with Tailwind classes, but we are not discussing Tailwind in this video. We are learning Wasp. What's interesting here is verify email form provided for us by Wasp. However, we are getting errors that this does not exist. Why is it so? Everything on client side and on server side too, followed by .wasp, gets generated for us every time we change our project. We haven't set up our auth yet. Wasp don't know if we need to verify email form. We should finish setting up this form first. For now I've commented out password reset. Let's create also a function that will verify our email. In order to do this on server, let's create folder auth and the file email ts. Here we'll import get verification email content function from wasp types. Of course it does not exist. Let's add our email verification route with post email verification and connect it to email verification page, which is wasp page, this component imported from our page here. Now here we are fine, and we are getting error for password reset route, so let's create it too. I've created password reset. It's pretty similar to email verification. We'll get into it later. Now we are getting new error that we are required to specify on auth failed redirect to, which is property of auth. Let's add it. Alright, looks fine. Let's see what we have in our console. Here it tells us that we also need to specify email sender. Let's do it too. Email sender. Here we'll specify provider, SMTP for now. Wasp also supports mailgun and SendGrid, I guess, but I don't like them because in free tier they don't allow me to send emails. I'll show you good alternative in a minute. And here we also need to specify default from, name and email, the same as here. We could have made some constants for this, but who cares? Alright. Wow, it worked! And now Wasp tells us that we made some changes to our database. Of course, we created some entities. So let's stop it and make waspdb migrate dev. Here we need to specify some name for our migration. Tell made user and messages entities. It will make good fancy name for us. In fact, it's Prisma migration tool under the hood. And now we can do wasp start and get the same page, but this time at least we know that we did everything correct. Yeah, this start is pretty tough, but it will get better soon, I promise you. Now maybe let me explain you what these pages do. As you can see, when Wasp is successfully compiled, we got generated password form. We just using it by providing Wasp logo, which is here. Actually, we are not using Tailwind yet, so let's set up it too. Wasp have built-in Tailwind support, so we don't have to specify it anywhere in dependencies, but we need to create two files. One called Tailwind config CJS, where CJS stands for common JS. It's required file format by Wasp. Here is everything really simple. Just default Tailwind config, and we extended a theme by primary color scheme with default colors of sky. And we need to create PostgreSQL config CJS with these contents. Now we can go to our main CSS and remove all of that. Instead we'll connect Tailwind and create root CSS variables for registration form. Don't worry, I'll show it in a minute. Let's get back into our layout, and it says it's missing tabular icons React dependency. Of course, Wasp doesn't have it built in, so we need to add this dependency. How we'll do it? Just like that. As of now, Wasp in beta, and it doesn't have ability to automatically fetch versions of libraries, so we need to go to npm and look for the latest version. Now it's installed, we can get back into our layout and see that it's just fine. For this test, let's wrap out, let's import this layout and wrap our main page into it. And we can see that Tailwind didn't work. After some time I figured out I had wrong file name for Tailwind config. It was called tailwindg. Now we are good to go. Actually, we can finally open our page. Here it is. We have a layout which I just pasted. It has header, says Hive mail, link to public messages, link to login, and a footer with Hive mail powered by Wasp. Now let's figure out other parts that we did and make our first commit. So in Tailwind config we specified that our primary color scheme is colors sky, which is Tailwind's set of colors. And in main layout throughout these classes we are using bg primary, and we will use it through all our app. It gives us the ability to say colors.green, and now our app is green themed. We have green header, green text powered by Wasp, and all other parts that we will be adding. So it's really handy. In layout we are importing our CSS file. It will be our start point of application, and then we will wrap other files into this layout. As of now, Wasp don't have support for layouts, but it will get them soon. Here we have some blocks, some links. Header link is my component defined here. Nothing like special, just React. Again, in these auth pages. Oh, of course, let's create routes for login and registration, I guess. So we can go here. In order to do this, let's create in our auth pages 2 more files. Call them login page tsx. Here we are using generated Wasp login form and customizing it with CSS variable colors that we defined in all our CSS file, which, oh, they are commented out. Okay. Now we have them defined. Colors is object generated by Tailwind CSS. So when we change primary, this variable changes too. Now we are done with CSS files here. Okay, let's see how login page looks like. Now let's add sign up page. It's basically the same as login one, but instead of login form we are using a sign up form. Now in our app we can go to login page and see some nice errors, I guess. Oh no, we have no errors. Oh, actually we haven't defined our new routes. Of course it doesn't work. Let's make some comment. Here will be routes. Here will be entities. Let's add login page route. Right. Everything looks correct except here we have login page, and we are exporting login page. Good. Let's add sign up page, as simple as it is. And now, oh, we have our login. I've previously signed up on my local host, so it have filled in fields, but you have them empty. And as you can see, and this is blue, as we specified in our settings to this component here. We are getting your company text. It's because we specified path to the file that doesn't exist. White, so I would say it's here. Yes, but by default in main page this template imports this image like this. This is considered a bad practice in React. We'd better create in the client folder new folder called public. That's a special reserved name in Wasp. Everything we put here becomes public. Now let's move our Wasp logo here. Now we can do localhost Wasp logo png and get it here as it is public. So in main page, instead of importing it like this, we do this. Now we have our logo. Actually it's Wasp logo, but this time I don't have some logo for my application, so let's use this. And it works here too. Let's go to sign up. Again, it will have empty fields for you. And we just signed up, I guess. Right, we just signed up. In development mode, Wasp actually doesn't send any emails, but instead writes them in the terminal. If you want to force it to send emails, you can always do this by specifying env variable. I'll show it later. Now we can click this link, send to our email, and when we open it, now we are getting this page that our email has been verified. We can go to login, but we are logged in automatically. Now we are getting in our layout also your messages tab. Of course, we don't have it yet, so it's blank. Now let's finally make a commit, I guess. Let's initialize git repo and add all of this. Let's call this big init. Fine. Now we have authentication. We can even log out and log in. That works fine. Let's make our main page. In order to do this, we go to our main page and just let's delete it permanently, since it's not in pages folder. Let's make new file in pages folder and call it home tsx. Okay, I've pasted our home page. We'll get to it just now, but also we need to create a component for our header. For this, let's create folder components and create file headers. Okay, I've made h1, which is basically just h1 with some classes that we'll need to use on our pages. Here we are extending default React interface for heading element and adding our children, additional class name, and we are also passing all props. So when using our h1, we get all of the parameters that h1 tag has. Here we still have errors. Let's restart our TypeScript server. Now it's fine. Why does it red? Of course, we changed this to home, right, from client pages home. Now we get this beauty page. Let's see how does it work. Here we are getting use of hook generated by Wasp, which tells us if user is logged in or not. If it is, then we are getting some sanitized user. If not, we are getting null or undefined. Then we have states for our form. We could use React hook form with something like a Zoot validation library to make it really good. But for this tutorial, we'll focus on Wasp, so it will work just fine. After all of that, we have function that handles creating message. We are checking if all fields are filled in. And if so, for now we just log in into console, what in future will be writing out to our database. And after sending message, we are setting yes send. Again, nothing super fancy, just our layout, some divs, our h1 component. We can, what properties of tag do you know? Hidden, for example, right? We can do hidden since it extends React props. All good. Now we have basic form, just React. And if user is not logged in, let's log out. Then we are displaying this message with link to login page. If message is sent, we will show some alert. Let's test this out. Test 1, some receiver. Again, we are not validating even that this is email address for this tutorial, but of course you can totally do it. We are getting this notification. This got logged in to console. All fine. So basically just this page is done. Now let's log in. Now let's make layout for your messages and public messages. First we'll comment this out. Homepage layout. Let's add new page and call it your messages tsx. I've pasted in this page, but before we need to quickly create one utils function. Let's make file utils.ts and make this simple function that accepts date and returns pretty formatted date string. Now everything is fine. We can go to that page. Of course we cannot. First, what we should do? Of course, first we need to add this route. Let's name it your messages route. Looks correct. And now we got this page. Here we have some messages with ability to tap on delete button and get it logged to the console. It's displaying all fields, whether it's public or private, and of course our fancy date. How does it work? Here we have our message card component, which accepts these fields. Actually, you know what? It's not the best typing. We can do it even better. We can pick message ID like this. How does it work? Pick is a utility type of TypeScript, which gets some object type and brings only keys that we specified here. If we need multiple keys, then we can do it like this. For example, of course, we don't have name, title. This will give us an object with keys ID and title with type as specified in message, string and string. And if we change, for example, our message ID to something else or our title type to something else, it will automatically be changed here. So pretty damn good type safety, you know. Of course, we don't need the object here, so we're only picking ID and getting ID key from this picked object. Now we have ID of string, but it's smartly typed. Alright, I've replaced all of it, but we're getting error. Description is not key of message. Why is that? Because here it's called body. So we are just changing it to body. Here too. Now we're getting description is string. Good. Here we're getting pretty date from our sent date and mock function to delete our message. Later we'll replace with actual delete message function. Here we have some layout. Again, if you wanna watch it, you can go to the link below to my GitHub and view everything you want. Here we are watching if message is public or not and displaying some icons. And we have buttons for edit and delete. Actually, I've not made editing functionality yet in the site that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So pull requests are welcome. For delete button, we are assigning on click delete message for it. And we are displaying first 100 characters of the description. If it's longer than 100 characters, we are also adding 3 dots. And here is our main page. Again, even simpler. Just layout, some div, header and our message card. Just layout for now. Now let's do this for public messages. Again, create file called public messages. Here everything is pretty similar to your messages, but even simpler. In our message card we don't have is public property since all messages are public. Oh, and we don't have delete functionality, of course, it's public messages. Here everything is basically the same. Let's add one more route. Yep. Now we can go to your messages and to public messages. If we are logged out, we can go only to public messages or at home page to send the message anonymously. Let's commit it. And now things start to get interesting. Let's add some real functionality to create a message on our home screen. In order to do this, let's add one more comment called procedures. And here we can use keyword query if we want to make some individual query. But in recent update, Wasp got amazing feature called autocrud. So when we can automatically generate some CRUD functions. In order to do this, we can write CRUD, then its name. It will be messages. Here we need to specify entity. This is CRUD for message entity, as we write down here. And we need to specify operations that we want Wasp to generate. We'll need get to get individual message for further editing. If we'll do it, we need to update, right? To update it. And we need to delete. But you'd say you forgot first letter of CRUD, create, right? Look, when creating entities, as of now, AutoCRUD can't connect them to some other entity. In this case, we want created message to connect to the user if it's logged in, and if not, stay completely anonymous. So what we can do is we can specify create. It will generate create function that not works as we want it to, so we can override it with our custom operation. Let's create it in the server. To do this, we are making, for example, messages TS file, where we'll specify all messages operations logic, or we can split it by files, however you want it to. For now, we'll write everything here. So what we have here, we have input parameters for our create action, and output is message. We are getting create action generated by Wasp CRUD messages. If we'll call it something else, or if we will not specify this CRUD at all, it will not be here. It will not be generated. Again, Wasp compiler compiles everything we want every single time we changed some file. And we are getting type of message from generated Wasp entities. Here we have our function, which takes these arguments, and context. What is context? This is some internal Wasp args passed by Wasp. Here we have user, and this applies to all procedures that we make in Wasp for custom queries, actions, anything we do, even for jobs, but I'll show it later. As of now, we are making custom create action. Okay, let's clear this out. What is actions? What is queries? If you are familiar with library called React Query, or as now it's called 10-stack query, then you already know it, but if you don't, React Query provides handy way to make queries in React. And Wasp provides generated hooks on top of React Query to work with them even more handy and comfortable. So queries are what we are calling in REST API with HTTP GET method. Actions are what we are calling with HTTP POST or PUT. And React Query provides a handy hook called use mutation to really hand it out. Now let's get back into code. We are getting user from context, and in context entities we have message, because here in CRUD we specified that entities for this CRUD is the message. Now we are making request to Prisma ORM basically. But again, Wasp generated some objects on top of it to work with it even more comfortable. We don't have to connect Prisma, anything like that. We are just checking if we have user. If we have, then user is logged in. And if it is, then message is basically our Prisma instance. And we are creating new record with some data. And we are connecting author, where ID is ID of our user. If it's not, then we are just creating without specifying author. That's simple. Now let's use it on our client. We are importing generated messages object from Wasp CRUD. And let's inject create message function from it, which will be messages create use action. What I told you, use action is a hook provided by Wasp, which is built on top of React query. Now in our mock function we can make a real function out of it. We just passing create message here and delete this, and that's it. No, that's really it. That's simple. We received create message function. Oh, and let's provide a then here. So if it's really after generated, we'll set is sent to true. How do we check that we really created? We can run Wasp DB Studio, which is basically Prisma Studio, but ran with Wasp. Let's see, we have one user, it's me, hi, and we have no messages. Now let's go to our website, create message, hello, some receiver, date when we wanted to set, and let's make it public for now. Oops, we not got our pop-up. What happened? Okay, Wasp can be tricky sometimes. In this import we need to use .js file format, even though our file is TypeScript, but when it's generated by Wasp it becomes JavaScript. Don't dig too much into it. Wasp is now in beta and soon it will become more clear. So now let's try to create our first message, hello, and make it public. Badoom, message saved, and it will be sent at this date. If we'll go to Studio, update, yep, we have this message. Let's commit it out, message creation. And now let's make pages your messages and public messages actually working. We go to your messages. Actually, we don't go to your messages. Let's make new query called get user unsent messages. For it we need to specify functions that don't exist yet and entities if we want to pass to this function. Of course we do. We'll work with message. Right. Now in messages we are importing generated type for this query, and let's actually create this query. Oh, also we'll need HTTP error. Alright, we are importing it from Wasp core. Here is our query. It's of type generated get user unsent messages. It doesn't accept anything, so it's void, and it's returning list of messages. Again, in context we have user, and in entities we have message. If user is not logged in, we are throwing HTTP error 401 and telling that you must be logged in to see your messages, of course. If user is logged in, we are again making query with Prisma, getting messages where author is our user and message is not sent yet. We are ordering them by ascending sent at. So firstly we'll see messages that will be sent soon. In real application you'll also need some pagination, so here you'll add some properties to get page number. Here you'll specify how many you need to take based on page number, but for now we'll be good with this implementation. And of course we are returning these messages. Now let's use it on a client. So what we do here is we are importing our messages CRUD object. Also we had not used, but we'll use it now. Use query hook from Wasp queries, and we're getting generated get user unsent messages object, and we are getting get user unsent messages function, which will pass into use query. Let's replace delete message with actual implementation. How hard it will be? You guess. I write. Badum. That's simple. But we haven't finished yet. We also need to show some real messages here. In order to do this, we are making request via useQuery hook. It passes data, which is messages. During its loading, it passes is loading, and if error, we'll get error object. If we are loading an error, we'll display it. But if everything is okay, we'll map through messages and display message card for each message. That's simple. Now let's log in. And it didn't work. Because again, sometimes Wasp imports are cursed. We need to specify node.js extension here. Now recompilation succeed. And perhaps, and also notice, on front end, we are going to port 3000, but our backend is on port 3001. That's because Wasp generates two different nodejs servers for our client and server. We'll get into it when deploying, and now we can log in. So let's create one more message. Previous one was public, as I remember. So let's make it really private. Okay. And now in our messages, we have private message, as well as our first message. If we want to delete it, we can delete it. Boom, it's gone. We don't have any messages in our database. Now let's do this for public messages. We need to add one more query. Let's call it get unsent messages. Alright. This looks fine. Now let's import this type too. Oh, something loud. Fucking Russians again bomb my city. Never mind. Donate to Ukrainian armed forces to stop this. Let's import get unsent messages. And I called it. Let's call it get public unsent messages. Right. Then let's import our generated object is now get public unsent messages. Yep, and we are fine here. It's basically the same, but we are checking if message is public. We don't need to check if user is logged in, and we are taking, say, first 10 messages. Since public messages, you can get lots of them. Now let's go to client. As well, we need to import messages here and get public unsent messages. Oh, it's wrong import path. Wasp queries. Because if we use this import path, technically it's correct. Oh, I guess it's not, but you know. You shouldn't use this path. You should use Wasp queries get public unsent messages. And we don't need parentheses here. Right, now let's look what we need to change here. Again, no big changes, just this. Oh, what? Why doesn't it work? We need to import use query from Wasp queries. Right, and what's wrong here? Get public unsent messages. Don't know. Right, we have check for the states, and let's loop out all messages instead of this layout. And just like that, we have our public messages. Let's see them. Wow, we have some fancy errors here. Oh, here is wrong. Oh, of course, I need to... Yeah, that was the issue. Now it should work fine. Yep, but we don't need login here. Let's go to public messages. Of course, we don't have no messages, so let's make some public message. Alright. Opa. And we have this public message. We can log out, go to public messages. We have it. Let's make also anonymous public message. Ta-da. And in Prisma Studio, we now have two public messages. One with author and one doesn't have any author. So far so good. This all works. But have you noticed something? Messages are not really sending nowhere yet. Let's make this happen. First, let's comment out how good we are. We have viewing messages, I guess. Right. And what we need to do now is make Wasp job. What is job? Job is essentially cron jobs, if you know it. If you don't, jobs are some things that happen on server. We are not directly calling them from the client, but we can call them on purpose, or we can make schedule for them and they'll run by themselves once in a while. For this application we need scheduled job that will run, say, every hour or every day, and send messages that don't send yet. So how we do it? And the important thing is jobs are separated from queries, they work by themselves, they are persistent behind server restarts. You can check it out in Wasp docs, all that I show, no magic here. So let's create our job. Let's make common jobs, and you guessed it right, we do it with job keyword. So here we need to specify job executor. It's the program that will be responsible for performing our jobs. As of now, Wasp only supports PGBoss, so we'll use it. Then what we need to perform, we pass function. Also, jobs have some other parameters that we don't need now, but you can check it in documentation. As of now, we are importing functions that we'll create in a minute, and we make schedule for this job in a cron format. Let's say every minute, and we can, even for jobs, pass message entity, so we can perform some database queries here. Now let's create new folder called jobs and create file called send messages ts, even though we have JS import. Alright. As of now, Wasp don't have support to generate types for jobs, so I just made ts_ignore here. You can write some type by yourself or wait until Wasp will support it. I spoke to developers, they know about this issue, they are working on it. Overall, Wasp developers are so kind people. What we do here is again pretty simple. We are getting message object from context entities. We are getting list of unsent messages by querying our database with Prisma. We are getting unsent ones, and where sent at date is lower than our current date, so we are only getting messages that need to be sent. Then for each message of these messages, we are calling email sender. What is email sender, you ask? I'll answer. It's again built-in Wasp feature that lets us basically send emails. Here we specify from who it is sent, to whom, what is subject, and text and HTML version of our message. For example, I have my message in Gmail linked to Telegram bot, and each time I receive message in this bot too, with some sweet preview. So if we'll specify text, it will be displayed here, and HTML will be displayed if we'll open it in some web client. Then after sending this mail, we are updating this message with ID of this message and saying that it is now sent, and we are logging to console that job is executed. As of now, I specified to run this every minute, but with this you can run it every hour, and as you noticed, it works separately from our server, from our client. It works by itself. Again, if you want, you can call jobs from the server, but we don't need it here. If you need it here, you can check out my previous Wasp project called typergotchi, where I'm generating images and uploading them to Cloudflare bucket through jobs. So now let's open some. Oh. I've been talking so long that we got some email with anonymous public message. Let's check it. It's sent at. Oh, of course. 12th. Today is 16th. Of course, it was sent. So as you can see, in development mode it got sent, and after that it is sent, and nothing really happens, but jobs gets executed every minute. Let's check again our studio. As you can see here is sent as false, but if we update, now is sent as true for this message. So everything works correct. Let's commit it. And that's really everything that I had in the site that I showed you at the beginning of this video. Now let's see how we can make some real message sending. Let's open docs. Here it have something for mailgun or SendGrid, but again they are not working like they should in free tier. So we can use any SMTP provider we want. For this we specified, but in .env.server file we just need to specify SMTP credentials. For example, I found Bravo, formerly Sendinblue, where on free tier you can get these credentials and of course key. I've used it with my previous project and it worked. You just do it like this, and if you want to send emails in dev mode in .env.server files, you can set send emails in development to true. Now the last step, deploying our application. I've deployed it to Railway. Right now, honestly, I'm tired with this tutorial, so I will not do it here, but let's quickly jump through the documentation. What's interesting with other options, for example, in Fly.io, we can deploy only server, and on Netlify, as suggested, right, you see here is server. So on Fly.io we can deploy only server, and on Heroku we can deploy only server too, and on Netlify we can deploy only client, while on Railway we can deploy both client and server. What we do in Railway is we create one Postgres instance and two servers, one for client, one for server. Just hook up credentials here and there, then install Railway on our computer, and with few commands we build our application and pass it to Railway, then it gets deployed and it works like charm. Actually no, I had one issue with React. I got 404 for all pages except main page when they are opened directly and not by links from home page. But again, I talked with developers, they are working on it. Perhaps they even got it fixed. And again, you see, this is blue, this is blue. We can go to our Tailwind config, change it to orange, for example, as my t-shirt today. And badoom, we have everything in orange. So I hope you like this tutorial. If so, smash that star button on GitHub. Visit this project on GitHub profile and check out Wasp. It's a really amazing project that I'm personally interested where will it go. As of now, it is server only. In terms of server, what I mean, if you know what is serverless, as of now Wasp does not support serverless, but developers say in future it will support it really good. And as of now we have only React, but in the future we may have other front-end frameworks. As of today we have React Router for navigation. This may move to framework agnostic 10-stack router, and then everything will be even more interesting. So I think Wasp is a really cool project and you should check it out. Oh, and one more interesting part, it's written in Haskell. If you know, you know. But as you've seen, you don't need to know any Haskell to work with it. You just write TypeScript and basically anything. As of now, most of your code is typesafe, and everything from Wasp port just works. Mwah. Bye. Maybe see you later.